Good morning. Welcome to Lifebox Media Channel Radio Podcast. Today is my esteemed pleasure. We have a special guest. He's a Songwriting Hall of Famer. He's a rock and music legend. He's Mr. Don McLean. How are you today, sir?
I am just fine. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's a real pleasure and honor to have you on today. You keeping warm up there in Maine?
Well, I'm actually in California right now. I'm in the desert outside
okay.
of Palm Springs, so I've abandoned Maine for a while.
It's wintertime. It gets a little blistery cold up there.
It's very cold.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations, by the way, 50 years of American Pie. I know you've probably heard it 10 million times, but it is legendary. And, for a young man who grew up, on your music, I'm 57, so I'm old. So, it is still resonating today that my children listen to your music.
I really appreciate that. And I happen to know because I get these printouts from Spotify and stuff, and hundreds of millions of downloads in thousands of countries. It's really amazing.
Yeah, my teenage granddaughters know who you are first off basis, so when that's really cool by itself. I mean,
that really is.
They're excited that you're on.
I'm excited. Thank you.
But let me ask you a question, sir. Something I don't know the answer to, and I know a lot about your career. Did you know any one of the three that you had written, the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, or Richie Valens? Did you know any of the three?
No. I was only 13 years old when they died. All I knew was my mother, father, and my school friends. But I remember as a paper boy, reading that story, and being a paperboy was the last job I ever had. I always made a living. I made a living with music from that point on, whether it was teaching guitar or banjo, or whether it was singing in little concerts or wherever. But I always managed to make with music after that. But yes, the song "American Pie" is really quite biographical in a way, and that's the reason why they did a bookazine about me and the song. And it really has to start in the beginning, when I was born, really, and the history of my life up until the time I wrote the song and somewhat beyond it. And that's going to be the same subject of this documentary movie that they're working on.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you're more than please come back on the show and talk about it when it's done. We'd love to have you.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I'd be happy to.
It's funny the impact that something can have so much. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, a paperboy, for most people who don't know, is you ride around on your bike, at least I did, and you throw the newspapers at people's houses, and hopefully you get it on the deck, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's what this children's book is about, American Pie, a Fable, which will be coming out next year, and we've already got the audio version done by an actor named Peter Gallagher, who's pretty well known.
Absolutely.
In fact, yeah, your granddaughters would know him. Yes, you would do that, and then once a week. I remember the lady's name was Mrs. Steinmetz. She would come to the house, and you had to give her, the money.
Yes, sir.
And I was such a bad guy, such a terrible paper boy, that I used to end up paying her.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you remember what kind of bike you had riding around doing it?
Yeah, I had a fat tire bike, and it wasn't a brand name. I think it was from a Sears Roebuck or something like that.
That was my first bike from Sears.
Yeah, and they had no gears. You just one gear, and then you push back on the pedal to stop it. But I tell you, it puts you in real good shape. Right. Riding that thing around, you got in tremendous shape. And of course, then later on, the English racer came along. Yes. With the Rudge and Raleigh, and they had 3 gears. Oh my God, they were like the Rolls Royce of bicycles. They were amazing.
Absolutely, that's absolutely. Speaking of riding, by the way, do you still ride horses?
No, I don't ride horses, but I keep horses still on my place in Maine. I stopped about 8 years ago when I had a pretty bad accident, and yeah, I had been doing it for like more than
Right.
30 years, and I figured it. I was getting kind of old. Time to stop.
You don't bounce like you used to. I don't. you
Yeah,
know,
what's that?
I don't bounce like I used to.
Yeah, that's right.
I love riding them, but I'm a little bit more nervous now today. That's why I just wondered because I've always seen you've had some beautiful horses, and I just wasn't sure if you still had horses anymore.
Well, they're wonderful, wonderful animals, and the interesting thing is that at one time, not long ago, we lived in 1900. We lived in a horse culture. The
Yes, sir.
majority of people were on the farm. Even in the cities, wagons were pulled by horses, and certainly before the steam age in the 1860s, these gorgeous granite buildings, in our major cities, that's horsepower built those.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I still love going downtown Philadelphia and seeing some of those old buildings that are there. At times you see those ones that were built like that. So without a doubt, I love that. Um, with you coming along, how do you feel that you're presenting this generation with not only your music and your knowledge, but putting out a book as well for our children?
Well, you know, each generation, as we get older, we have a lot of information because we've been a long time, and that's the interesting thing about tribes. Is that they would and Asian cultures and the Indian culture as well, as they valued their old people because they were a repository of information. And what is bad, I think, is when you get a technological culture, you abandon them, and you're forced to reinvent the wheel over and over again because you don't have people to tell you that there was actually a better way of doing things. And modernism is a dangerous thing unless you keep at least some sense of tradition.
I agree. When my children were growing up in the '80s, they were picking all different types of music, and I said, listen, this is what you're going to listen to. When you learn all this, then you can listen to whatever you want growing up afterwards. And to this day, and my children are almost all in their 30s, all sit there and listen to everything today. And I feel like the foundation of it is the same thing as what you're quoting with life itself.
Well, it's important, I think, to put good ideas in your head. I mean, if you put nastiness and you put evil and you put cruelty in your head, you're going to get that out. And
Yes, sir.
you got to put the right things in to get the right things out. And when people a lot of times will ask me, well, I want to write songs, and I tell people, it's very hard to even write a bad song. Most people, if you got some guy on the street or some lady said, would you sit down and write a song? They couldn't even begin to know how to do that. So, if you decide to be an artist and write, you really should, number one, put good songs in your head, and number two, you should have something to say. If there's something that I was always lucky because I had ideas that would occur to me that would be a nice verse. I was talking to T.J. Shepherd on his show.
Yes, sir. He's a good friend of the show, a good friend of mine. I love him.
And I said, when my father died, I didn't leave home. Home left me. There was no home. And he seized on that right away. He liked it. I said, that's a great song idea.
Right.
Well, you see, that's the kind of thing that comes out of my head and comes out of my mouth, is that I'll come up with one of these ideas, and then I'll write he's probably going to use that and write a song from it. But, that's my particular gift. That's what I have been lucky enough to be able to do.
Well, it's funny, sir, that you say that because, and I asked, and I just had Miss Kelly Lang on just yesterday, um, that his wife. I was just saying, when you sit down and you write a song, I asked every great singer songwriter, and gosh, I got one of the best on. So, is it when the spirit moves you, when you hear something that's a
Yeah,
hook, or is it all the above?
yeah. I just do what I want to do most of the time, and then some. I'll get in a project or something, and I'll write a bunch of stuff. It'll start happening, but I save up a lot of experiences and things that I read, and my mind is really kind of like flypaper for useless information.
I
You
love
know,
that. I love
it
that.
sticks in my head, and then I know, I go back and I get some little notion, and sometimes will have a plan for a song,
Yes, sir.
that, like the song Prime Time I wrote in the 70s. I began to think that I was seeing more mechanical music, like robots making music, and everything coming through the television, all reality coming through the TV. And that was more than 40 years ago, and that is really where it's at now.
Yes, sir.
You know, our reality comes through the screens, and the songs are made by robots. Really, more they will make better and better songs. Robots will make very good music in the future because they'll be able to put not just the garbage that kids listen to now in their heads, but all of the other stuff, Irving Berlin and Paul McCartney and everything else in there.
Right. When you were talking about delivering papers, when you were a teenager, who was Don McLean listening to on the radio?
Well, I listened to all the great ones, the Everly Brothers and Elvis, and I listened to Little Richard, and I listened to all the great rock and roll groups, the early ones, the Five Satins and
Oh,
the
jeez.
all those groups are my favorites. So that whole world, really, in the 1950s, everybody, and I like the popular stuff too. I did not like Frank Sinatra
Okay.
very much. But later on, I discovered him when I was like in college. It was so funny. I discovered the album September of My Years, and I loved that record.
Oh,
And I
wow.
I began to fall in love with string arrangements also. And I think there was another one I liked, When No One Cares, which I think Nelson Riddle did or Gordon Jenkins, one of them, did the arranging on that. Beautiful songs. And I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance, and I Can't Get Started with You. And I used to actually practice singing those songs when I was, 19 or so. I guess I'd walk around at night and take a long walk, and I would sing these songs and try to control a slow song. That's the hardest thing to do. It's easy, to sing a fast song, but it's hard to control the time in a slow song. And so I worked at that, and that's where songs like Vincent and Empty Chairs and I Love You So and a lot of these ballads that I do come from. I learned to do this.
I think all my singers and songwriters out there, you guys, that was a great lesson by one of the greats right there. Thank you for sharing that, sir. I really do appreciate that. Do you remember the first record you bought?
Pretty much, I think it still resonates with me. It was Buddy Holly and the Chirpin' Crickets.
And the Chirpin' Crickets. Wow.
Yeah, I think that is a blue cover with the four guys on the front and their guitars and everything
I
in the
love that.
sunlight. And I do believe that is still one of my favorite albums ever.
That is incredible. I love that. Now you mentioned the King. I didn't realize, and I know a lot about your career and have been a fan for years. I didn't realize you were quite as tight with the King as you were with Elvis as you were. I know obviously you did a song of yours and stuff, but it was incredible. You have a good memory of the King.
Well, I the first record that I got of Elvis Presley was in 56 or 7. I got two 78 RPM RCA Victor records from a friend of mine as a birthday present. And they had Tutti Frutti and I Don't Care If the Sun Don't Shine and a couple of the Beast. Those were 78s. People don't realize Elvis was available on 78 and 45 RPM.
I didn't know that, sir. I did not know that.
Yeah, it took a long time to get rid of the 78s. They had been the predominant
for the
single.
Right.
It was 78s, but then the 45 came in around when Elvis started, and so that you get them in both formats. And so that got me started. I would listen with my grandmother, who was really the only one that really appreciated Elvis Presley in our house. And she loved the Jordanaires, and it was so much fun because years later I ended up having some hit records with the Jordanaires.
Yes.
So that was a full circle type of thing. And then Elvis recorded And I Love You So.
Yes. And
so he did it every night, really, for that last very rough year that he had, 76, 77.
That was one of his last songs he sung, I think, right?
Yes, it's the last song on side 4 of Elvis in Concert. And they just recently gave me a triple platinum award for that. I have it on my wall here. I've got all these awards that I've been getting from these different record companies for artists that have recorded my stuff.
That's my mom. That's one of my mom's favorite Elvis songs, by the way. She's going to be 80 this month. She's coming down for Thanksgiving, but that's one of her favorite songs there. So she's going to be excited to hear that you talked about that. So I personally thank you and appreciate that because I didn't know that was coming. So thank you so much for that, my friend.
Elvis was, physically very big. He was a big guy and not a small guy. And he was very, very handsome.
Yeah. And
he had all that, the things that he did, the way he dressed and his hair and everything. And so that made him a little frightening, to square white people who were from the North and not, from the Deep South, where they saw a lot of characters like that.
Right.
And, but his music was very gentle. Don't Be Cruel, All Shook Up, Love Me Tender. These were beautiful, sensitive. He was a very gentle, kind person. What happened, though, is after his mother died, I think a certain anger took over. He was trapped with the colonel. He didn't have his mother anymore. I think he was stuck with those idiots that he had to be around and didn't really want to do any of that, but kept doing it and drugging himself up like mad in order to cope, and that's what killed him.
Right. Yeah, it's a sad thing. That's I'm always been a fan of the King, always will be. And I think it's funny because all the people that I've watched that you've performed around with and everything else over the years, I think that that type of style of heart, I say your heart, kind of attracts each
well, he was such a great singer, and he had Chet Atkins said, I knew Chet pretty well. He produced a lot of those early tracks on RCA.
Yes, sir.
And he said Elvis really had about 5 or 6 different voices.
Right.
He had the Don't Be Cruel voice, but he also had the Jailhouse Rock voice, which was very different, and a bunch of other voices that he would use. And he was just a great singer and a charismatic performer, and he pushed it hard. And the thing about it is, even on that last couple of shows that he did in Rapid City and wherever the other play, Indianapolis, I guess, he could barely stand, but he got a performance off of a hurt that would knock your socks off,
Yes, sir.
so
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. With that being
he could
said,
do it.
oh, well, you and I could talk that all day long. So believe me, I appreciate this that you're sharing your side of that because I agree 100%. With that being said, if you could go way back in the DeLorean in a time machine, is there somebody that you would have loved to perform with that you just say, man, I just missed a spot or I didn't get a chance to?
Mm, I don't think so. I wouldn't. Anytime you'd make a television appearance, you might sing a song with somebody or whatever. But no. But I love being there. I saw everybody.
Yeah.
I saw everybody. I was there, and I was at Shea Stadium when the Beatles were there.
Oh,
I was at Madison Square Garden when they had the Bangladesh concert. I was when Dylan first came to town. I was at Carnegie Hall and saw that in 1962. I was every place. I was always there.
I just wondered. I didn't because you have a lot of business like that. So I just wondered if there was anybody you just looked back and said, "Man, I like to have operated with them a little bit," and
Well, I certainly wouldn't have mind singing with Buddy Holly. I'll tell you that because he didn't need me. He didn't really sing with other people, but I could sure play rhythm guitar with him.
how long did it take you to learn how to play the guitar?
Well, the guitar was a formidable obstacle,
Yeah, I'm still
you
fighting with
know,
it.
and I was thinking to myself as a young little boy, really, yeah, I can sing. I thought I said, but if I could, just learn to play that thing,
Yes, sir.
I could, maybe make a living, make a few bucks. Well, I had no idea that strapping that guitar on immediately made me a babe magnet. The
My
women
man.
came out of the woodwork. I mean, they did. They came from everywhere, and that never stopped. And that's when I, wasn't all that good at it, But
Imagine when you get good, right?
as I got better, I played bigger and bigger places,
Right. Yes, sir.
and I actually played solo for the 10 years of the 1970s. It was me, the guitar, and the banjo.
Yes. Yes, I
And
remember
I
that.
played every major hall in the world many times that way with nothing plugged in and no monitors, nothing. And all sorts of major festivals too. So, as I got more, with other musicians and plugged the guitar in, and it was a piece of cake, because it's like I'd been riding one of those old bicycles, and I got me an English racer.
Well, I mean, geez, I think if you'd ever showed up with without your guitar, anybody, people would be like, go find it, go get it." I mean, because you were always seen with it.
Um, I love the sound of the guitar. If there's some YouTube video of me playing at Royal Albert Hall, I'm wearing kind of a mustard colored cowboy shirt, and it was from a special called Don McLean at Royal Albert Hall. And that guitar I had really sounds good. I was always into the
Yes, sir.
tone of my instruments, I was working on tone all the time. Uh,
Yes, sir. And I think you've made a great job of it. And real quick, and I appreciate you going by with us. And by the way, three quick fun questions we always ask all our guests. One, if you can choose a night out, is it dinner and dancing or a movie?
say that one more time, please.
I said we normally ask our guests a couple of fun questions. So one of them is dinner and dancing or a movie.
Dinner and dancing or a movie?
Yes, sir.
Movie for sure.
Comedy or horror?
Well, most of these horror movies are comedy, but
That's a great
I'd
answer. I
say
love that.
comedy. Yeah.
Comedy. You have a favorite?
Well, I just watched Some Like It Hot the other day with Marilyn. One of my favorites.
That's fantastic. And now since actually I kind of messed up in the beginning, is it the beach or the mountains? Which one do you like?
Both. That's why I have a home in Maine and a home in the desert.
Yeah, I kind of knew that I was loaded for that question. And last one of the fun questions: steak or lobster?
I like surf and turf.
My man. Right on. By the way, and congratulations on you being featured in the new Finch movie with Tom Hanks. That's really cool.
That's another one. We had two major movies this year. We had the Black Widow and the Tom Hanks movie. Both have a featured American Pie. It wasn't just in the background. They were. It was part of the story, really.
Yes, sir. I think
Yeah.
that's so cool to bring another generation to you again, and you're starting right off with that part of it is. And by the way, can you tell us a little bit about your foundation, my friend?
My foundation is not heavily funded, but it will have everything that I own in it when I die, and I will put money. I put money in it all the time, from time to time, and I help support at the moment food banks and homeless shelters, and especially the Portland Salvation Army to get sleeping bags and clothes to people who can't get through the winter in Maine, which is a tough winter.
Yeah, I used to go up to South Portland a lot, and it's one of the biggest areas for homeless children in the country. And so I will put all the information, if you'd like, I'll put all the information on with this interview if anybody'd like to donate or anything else as well.
Well, I'll tell you what. This homeless problem is going to get a whole lot worse very soon.
Unfortunately, I
You know,
think you're right, Mr. McLean.
because they're kicking people out of their houses now, and it's not a good thing.
Yes, sir. I agree with that. And by the way, you have a big tour coming up. You have a big tour coming up, and everybody needs to go check out your website at donmclean.com for awesome tour he's got going right now. And also, you have a cruise coming up in February.
Yeah, that's the first one of those I ever did. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
That's gotta be nice. Going on a cruise, working a little bit, getting a little
Yeah, that's right.
sunshine.
Take my girlfriend with me. We'll have a blast.
Right on, my friend. Is there anything else you want to share? By the way, we're now in 61 countries with active listeners. Is there anything you want to say to your fans, sir?
Well, I want to tell everybody that the good times are coming. We're going to get through this stuff, and we'll be stronger than we were before. And we're always going to have our music. And the main thing I think now is to get vaccinated, stay healthy, and let's put this thing in the rearview mirror so we can get back to normal.
From your lips to God's ears, my friend, ladies and gentlemen, he's an absolute legend. It has been such a pleasure having you on. Please come back on when your kids' book's out. I'd love to have that out and share that with everybody. I've been looking forward to it. I had heard about it before, but it has been such a pleasure having you on, Mr. McLean. And
Thank you.
check everybody on social media. Don McLean with the Lifebox Media Channel. Mr. Don McLean, we are out.